All right, so we left off on CSS working with text. Last thing we did was horizontal alignment. Now let's go ahead and work on vertical alignment. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead. So let's just instead of typing out all this stuff, I'm just gonna copy it. We're gonna create a table and below our test stuff. All right, and this has got cell padding 2, cell spacing 0, and the important part is the height, right? And the reason the height is important is that if you're going to vertically align, if you didn't have a height, here, let me just show you the difference. All right, so here's the text, right? From this. And if you didn't have a height specified, then there would be nothing to vertically align. Like you're not gonna have a spot you can go up and down or whatever on, right? So whatever you're vertically aligning, you need to have your height specified. And so let's just go ahead and just copy. Really the only thing that matters here is your I'm not gonna copy all that. Let's just do the vertically aligned bottom, right? So we're specifying our table data, and which section do we want to specify? The bottom. Because it's the class table data dot class. So we do the dot syntax, and the one that's specified bottom. So we're referencing all the if we had multiple tables, we're referencing basically all with the TD, all the table data. So if we had like multiple tables here, it'd be referencing all of them. But then we're getting more specific. We're doing the class with the dot syntax bottom, right? So using class is important because then you can reference the specific stuff of like what you're trying to do, like the different classes that are, I'm not making sense, but like the different classes that you are referencing. So like a different example would be, I don't know, paragraph with, class cool text or something. I don't know, whatever, that you just want to do different or whatnot. So you can, with the class syntax, the dot syntax, you can, specify the different things that you've created, classes for. But anyway, so the class bottom, we want to do the vertical align, and we want the bottom. All right, so always got to empty our cache, and then see this is going to the bottom of this 150 pixel thing, right? And then you could do top as well. And I mean, empty our cache. Just gonna use the you're not gonna see me do this empty cache as much because I'm just gonna use these, but every time you got it, you're messing with CSS, empty your cache. Anyway, so that's how you do that. And so now, all right, so that's all well and good for tables, right? But let's say we've got some line of text we want to mess with. Honestly, I'm gonna I'm not going to go over all these, the sub, baseline, blah, blah, blah. Most important one to be messing with is pixels. That's what you're going to be doing the most. So, all right, so let's go to our test stuff, right? So in our test stuff, let's create span. Because remember, anytime in a paragraph or in a line of text where you want to reference a particular spot without like having to go to a new line, like creating a new paragraph or whatnot, you know, you'll go ahead and reference it with your span tag. So, and let's go ahead and call this class. Well, let's just do just like they did. Class equals pixel. So then we go and reference our span with the class. So class dot pixel. And then do our vertical align, and we'll do minus, because it's minus from wherever its starting point is, or plus or minus there. I'll show you both. Minus 100 pixels. All right, so as always, empty our cache, and then refresh. And so, as you can see, it moved down 100 pixels. And it's also going to move if you don't have, well, we'll get more to that later, where you have it like later you're going to learn about, you know, whether this just goes with the natural flow, or you can have it like stick there. We'll get to that later, but since right now it's just set to default, since this is going down 100, the natural flow of the page, you know, it's going to move this stuff down too, right? So all right, so now, so it's from where it's naturally going minus 100, right? Let's say we didn't want to do minus. Let's say we want to go higher, right? Empty our cache, refresh. Then, so now it's going up 100, right? And let's say we just get rid of this altogether. Empty cache, refresh, and just goes back to normal, right? So that's how you can mess with, like, you know, placement of, you know, your text, like off centering it and whatnot from the other stuff. So this is just talking about, okay, so now let's go ahead and do it with, you know, the div, a div, right? So let's just go ahead and copy all this. Throw it down here. Just copy all this text. Instead of taking the time to type it all out. So empty our cache. So now you see it's in the middle. But you have to do, the reason it's able to do that is because it's doing a couple things, right? So first, it's specifying the height of this little main section that it's messing with, right? Because if it didn't have a height, there'd be no middle. So like, and let's change this to like bottom. Right. If it didn't have a height, there'd be no such thing as the bottom. It would just stay right there. Other important thing is you have to include your display, and then inline table, and then display table cell, bottom. That's just so that it can create an environment to kind of move around in and whatnot. Because without that, like, watch, let's take that stuff out, right? So without that, save that, empty our cache and stuff, right? It's just like, well, I'm telling it to go to the bottom, but it doesn't have like an environment to move around in, so it thinks it's at the bottom. It's just like this right here is at the bottom because the width of it is its whole thing. Like basically it's just thinking that line. It's at the bottom of that line, but it's also at the top of that line and at the middle of that line. If that makes sense. If that's not making sense to you, and you have more questions on that, just let me know. But yeah, anyway, long story short, you do display and add this stuff in to make it work. So because then now you cache and see now it's back to the bottom. So that's that. And let's just continue along. Let's do some text decoration. All right, so you want to throw some lines on it. We're not going to go over all these. Like you can see the different options, but we'll go through how to do it. So let's go ahead and mess with our test stuff, right? So if we go ahead and throw in here the let's do text decoration, let's do underline, right? The refresh and make sure you always save this page. Right. Now we've got this cool little underline, right? So there's your text decoration, and you could do overline or line through or whatnot. And like the only reason to use the none really is if it's inheriting text decoration. So like if you should understand inheritance at this point, but like if one of the higher up elements, like if you specified the whole body to be underlined, right? But you're like, well, I don't want this section to be underlined. All right, well, text decoration, I don't want this paragraph to be underlined. All right, text decoration, none, right? And inherit is just like, well, whatever you get from what you inherit, well, you're gonna inherit anyway. Anyway. Okay, if you want to add the blink property, okay, go ahead and add that. Make it all blink and cool. save, empty cache, refresh, save. Okay, well, whatever. It's not wanting to do it. That's fine. Oh, it's depreciated, so that's why my browser's just ignoring it. Back in the day, you could make it blink though. Okay, so now we want to indent our text, right? Like you can't just add spaces like to your stuff. So like, all right, here, let's create a paragraph. All right. So like here is a paragraph. Right. All right, so we got this paragraph, right? And I want to add like a bunch of spaces. It's not gonna work. Oh, let me show you. See, it's not gonna work because it just ignores that. It's like, okay, you added some spaces. That's cool. You didn't programmatically tell HTML to do it and CSS to do it. All it sees is the text you're adding here, right? But we go ahead and do some text indent. So for all paragraphs, so with our CSS, we're referencing all paragraphs on this by just adding the P, right? So we do text indent, then choose some pixels. They're doing 60. I want to do 100 pixels. All right, save that. Empty cache, refresh, and there, got 100 pixels of space there now. So if you want to, add an indent, that's what you got to do. I mean, you could also, do your like we were doing before, the text align and whatnot. Let's do like, I know it's just gonna be, never mind. Just do your text indent and just do your pixels for if you want to indent the stuff. So all right, so I want to throw some shadow on the text. Okay, they're trying to make this big. All right, so let's go ahead. Do we have any H1s already in here? No. You know what? It might be more useful for you to see this stuff on the test page. So you can, looks a little cooler this way. So hold on, I'm gonna start using that. Hold on. So let's go to /test. All right. So first thing, since I'm switching over to this, remember, we've got to go ahead and do the link style sheet thing we covered earlier. And throw that in our head. So we can use the same stuff we were doing before. And like it's gonna, since I added it, you know, to this and then just imported it. So like now the stuff we did with the paragraph. So let's empty cache, refresh. So like it's doing that indent that we just did for paragraphs. But anyway, so let's go over here and then throw in a H1. The cool thing about doing it in a static file is it'll actually, you know, fill stuff in it, as opposed to like when we were doing it right here, it's literally just a Python string, which you'll learn about later, but this is an actual, you know, HTML file. So since we're doing some CSS, let's do it in an HTML file to have it autofill some stuff for us. But anyway, all right, so H1, I don't care about the color, but they want to do some, all right, let's say this is the H1. All right, so for all our H1s, we're just messing with text shadow. So let's just mess with text shadow. All right. And let's do 5 pixels. We'll do just like they do. And then a space, because you're specifying for each section. I will make the color gray of your shadow. So for the X coordinates, the Y coordinates, and then the blur radius. So like how blurry you want it. So like then empty cache, refresh, and see we got this cool little shadow going on over here, like off to the right, and it's kind of blurry and stuff. But let's say we wanted it, you know, we didn't want it to go that way. Well, then we want to do some -5 instead, right? Cache, refresh. See, now it's kind of going off this way, because if you want it to go that direction, you got to go negative, because its natural default is to go off to the right if you're going positive numbers, right? So you want it to go to the left, do negative, all right? And then like, let's do some negative. Let's make that 5, let's make it bigger, right? And empty cache, refresh. So now it's, see, it's going up because I went negative on it. So that's how you can play around with that. And yeah, and then they're talking about, I mean, you don't just have to do it pixels, you know, you do it as EM and whatnot, and like you don't have to just do gray or whatnot. You could do a shadow of like a specific color and stuff. So that's what they're talking about here. Okay, so we want to do this to capitalize the stuff, then, you know, we can do that. Text transform, capitalize. So let's mess with our paragraph, right? So our paragraph here, like right now, it's not capitalized. But now let's go ahead and add text transform, capitalize. And look, now the first letter is capitalized, and you didn't have to type it out yourself. So there's that. And I mean, you could do lowercase too. Let's see if this is, let's look at what the text looks like. It already is lowercase. Let's do like, hey, Paul, welcome to the training. I'm just doing a video. So now let's go ahead and even though I made it capitalized, it's lowercase. And if I just got rid of this, it would go back to its normal capitalizedness. Any questions or anything, Paul? I can pause the video if need be.
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, cool. All right, letter spacing. Okay, so you want to add some spacing so your letters aren't so again, this part is talking about inheritance, so naturally it's just going to be normal. But if your higher up element, like we've talked about before, has got some letter spacing going on, you want to revert it to normal, just use normal. But now if you want to add some letter spacing, so let's go ahead and just let's do the whole, they're specifying the class, but let's just do all the paragraphs. So let's do letter spacing. Let's do 10 pixels. Save that. Go ahead and empty cache. And it's got big old space in between. And if you want it closer together, then you just go negative. So let's go ahead and do some negative letter spacing. It's like closer together and jammed up together like that. So that's letter spacing. Word spacing. If you want spaces in between your words or to alter that, wow, I'm trying to do some big old word spacing. All right, so get rid of letter spacing. Word spacing. 30 pixels it is. And it's just adding spaces in between your words. And just like with letter spacing, you want to go negative to get it closer together. You can go negative. Right. Don't really recommend that because then it looks like just a bunch of letters together, but you can do it. White space. Okay. So, basically, all right, let's go ahead and just throw this in here. Let's throw in a whole bunch of stuff though. All right. All right. So we go ahead and throw in our white spacing. No wrap. And it's like going and going and going, as opposed to we got rid of that no wrap. And it's going to come down to the next line at the end of the page. So that's how you can use that. Hey, Johnny. Welcome to the meeting. I'm just wrapping up a video here. And then this just gets into, pre-wrap and whatnot, pre-line. Well, let's go ahead and it pretty well demonstrates it here. So, all right. All right, that's the last thing. The next thing is the quiz. So if you, so again, I don't cover the quizzes, but if you get stuck, because some of the quizzes they ask like tricky questions and whatnot, feel free to reach out. And next thing we'll be covering is properties.